Maddux, how's the body feel after a whole month? I mean, you weren't live today, but you've taken plenty of hits over the last month. I don't know how different that is in the past camps for you, but how's the body feel?
Yeah, I actually feel really good. My body feels like I'm in a great spot. It's kind of nice to be able to be healthy and play football at 100% again, and that's a blessing I'll never take for granted.
What was your expectation for Rasean Jones day one of spring camp compared to where you are now?
Yeah, obviously I'm not very involved in recruiting. So like coaches are talking about Rasean Jones, and Coach D's always talks super highly of him. So I was like, all right, he's got a chance to be really good. But at the end of spring camp, it's cool to see how much he's grown on me, but this whole team of like, he's a guy on offense we can trust to play football at a high level consistently, because he has throughout 15 practices, and he'll make plays when he's one-on-one, and that's a huge deal in the wide receiver room.
You see to make up chemistry like with him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome. I mean, he's a guy like – I actually had the wide receivers over to the house for dinner, and he was one of the very few guys that was super kind to my wife. And I always joke with my wife because she's like, he's such a sweetheart. He's so nice. I'm like, yeah, you should see him play football. And I feel like that level of respect I have for him goes a long way, especially when we're playing football together.
Seen him make a lot of catches this spring, but the one today in the end zone, how impressed were you with that?
Yeah, that was fantastic. That makes my job a lot easier, I'll say that. Throw the ball up in the air, let him be one-on-one and make a play, touchdown. It's a great thing to have. Like I said, the chemistry thing with him, that's a huge deal.
Not to make it all about Rasean, but you guys made him the first pick of the wide receivers. I mean, do you feel like he's the best wide receiver or up there right now on this team?
Yeah, I would say this wide receiver room especially is playing football at a high level. And that's one thing I couldn't say there's one that's better than the other, but that room is playing football at a really high level. And when they do, like when they make the plays, I don't know if anyone was out at practice on Thursday, but that was like those wide receivers were making plays the whole day, and it was an electric day. When they make plays like that, that's going to help our offense a lot. And honestly, it raises the room for everybody to have a level of competition. Everyone wants to be a 1,000-yard receiver at the end of the year. And so if they all reach, like trying to get that, it's elevated the whole room, and it has throughout spring camp, which is awesome for me, I'll say that.
This question is meant to compare the returners versus the new wide receivers, just focusing on the new wide receivers. How much progress did they make? And like you bring up Thursday's practice, it was like Darren Morris mossed somebody in the end zone, and then obviously Rasean had another touchdown, and then Akeem made like a couple of big plays. So, you know, I just felt like a lot of the new guys, like you look at the start of spring to now, and they're just like, those guys have really seemed to take off.
Yeah, I know that was something that the coaches looked for in the whole recruiting process through the transfer portal of like who can help us now. And I feel like they've done a great job. Obviously, learning a whole new offense is very difficult, but you've been able to see like from practice 1 to practice 15 how much better they were able to make more plays because of the fact they understood the playbook. They knew what route they were running. And then that gives them the opportunity to play really fast and do what they were capable of doing and what these coaches saw to bring them here.
Do you notice a difference, Maddux? I mean, at times last year we talked about separation with wide receivers and things like that. Like, do you notice a difference at this specific room?
Yeah, our wide receiver room is playing at a really high level, and it's cool to see. And honestly, I'll give a props to the defensive back room. Like, that's a battle that is going to change the whole trajectory of our team because it's two very important positions on the field. And those two groups going back and forth, it's elevated both of them. And our wide receivers are playing at a really high level because of it, and it's awesome.
More conversation this spring, literally about trick plays. I know that's a fan thing. And then was there a message sent today to fans that this offense on purpose is going to be more creative this fall?
Honestly, we didn't run trick plays throughout the spring. Like, that's not something we were repping. It was more like, all right, here's our DNA plays. Let's get really good at them. But once kind of the reins were let off today, that was the first thing people talked about. I was like, all right, what trick plays are we going to go in? And I know there was a rule set between the two coaches that was only one, but I can speak for us. We had a few more than one, and I know they did because they ran 2 in the same drive. But, I mean, every week, like, that's the thing. When you get into game, like, season, every week we carry at least a couple trick plays. It's just a matter of like when's a good time to call them or like what's a good look, because you don't want to lose those trick plays on a terrible look. So yeah, it is fun to be creative, and I know that's an emphasis that the staff, like obviously Coach Potter playing here in times of trick play, like that's an emphasis that the staff has had of like, all right, let's be a little bit more creative.
Said your spring was maybe a little bit up and down, more than what you'd want. I guess why do you think that's the case? You know, what were some of the things that you think that was the case for.
Yeah, 100%. I think between both Coach D and I, and it's something and Coach Hill and Coach Potter, those three guys have held me to an extremely high standard, kind of the standard I've always had for myself. I would say every time, like every camp, every spring I've had would be up and down. It's not something I'm walking out like, oh, I really love my camp. There's always going to be the ups and downs, and I think that comes from the high standards, and I appreciate those guys holding those high standards on me because I know when it's all said and done, it's going to help me and benefit me. But it was just like simple things of like certain plays I need to make, and I feel like that's why it was up and down, and it affected sometimes like the trajectory of practice of like, all right, if I'm not making a simple play on the first team period, that's not creating momentum for the offense. And like I said, it's something I'm extremely grateful for because of the high expectations. And I know going forward, it's going to give me an opportunity for a lot of growth.
I guess just going forward, what's going to be one or two of your main goals as we head into the summer and in fall camp and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, our Coach D and I's conversation, a huge part was like the max effort in time of like, I feel like football is a timely matter of my life, the way I approach that. But at the end of the year, my major goal is absolutely zero regrets. And that's whether or not I regret how good I was or if I regret how much, like, I feel like my biggest regret could possibly be not enjoying my last year of football. And I think joy comes from success in ways. And that's something that I want to make sure like I'm extremely successful in, whether it's the little things, the basics of like easy completions, watching tape with those wide receivers so it's on the same page. And those are two things that I know I'm going to 100% put my full ability to. So by the time fall camp comes and season comes, we're hitting the ground running in a good spot.
Is there a different mentality for you or a sense of urgency knowing that this is it for you?
I would say slightly, but I've always kind of had the chip on my shoulder. But more than anything, I mean, I've kind of said it before, just the legacy I want to leave. And with that, like, I know there's a lot of work that I have to do. And so I would say there is a little bit of like, all right, it's crunch time now. You've only got one more opportunity to kind of leave that legacy. And so that's something that's been nice because it's, like you said, there's a little sense of urgency that comes from that. And I'm grateful for that.
Someone asked Spencer, so I'll ask you. You're married now. Does that change how you're walking into the building, how your practice is going? Is any effects at all?
I wouldn't say it changed anything, but it sure is. It makes life a lot simpler knowing that if I have a bad day, I've got someone to come home to. If I have a good day, I've got someone to come home to, and she'll love me either way.
You bring the word legacy, and you're at Spencer kind of to say that, like, what's the legacy you want to leave here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you talk about 2 conference championships. You talk about 24 and like the Fiesta Bowl and those things, like losing that game. To me, people were satisfied in a way with that season, and I came away from it like I don't want to lose that game. And I think that's a huge part going into this year of like, all right, we win a conference championship, the first in the Pac-12. That's a huge deal, but how do we set ourselves up to have a chance to compete in the college football playoff and win games, not just be there, win games. And I think that's something that will definitely help that legacy.
Physically, when it comes to your game, what's the number one thing you'll work on all summer?
Yeah, I think a huge part, and it's kind of been an emphasis throughout from last season, I need to allow guys to be more explosive, and that's with the ball down the field. And I know it's something I've worked on throughout the spring, but going forward, that's a huge part. But another thing, like I kind of just said, of like, all right, how many times in the season are we going to run a 5-yard slant? It could be 50. How many times am I going to complete that? I want it to be 50. And so that's a huge part of like, all right, these are the little simple things that are going to impact our offense, myself, in a huge way, and that's what I want to get increasingly better at.
What was it like waking up today knowing you get to play football in front of Bronco Nation and on the blue and stuff like that?
Oh, it was a blast. Like, there's no better feeling than being out there on the blue. And I will say that this spring game was probably the funnest I've ever been a part of because of the teams thing. Like, that's been something that's been talked about all week of like, it's a competition. We're batting heads. I mean, we're walking out to go do a walkthrough on the blue, and they've got their jerseys, our pants set out in the lockers, and our whole team's grabbing the orange pants and throwing them all over the place. Like, and then we come back in and my cleats are tossed out of my locker. It was just a fun like vibe. I mean, everyone's sitting up there in the morning, like sitting with your team. It was awesome. And then being out there, just the fans and the atmosphere, it brought a lot of joy, that's for sure.
I got one more. You and Stu. I mean, it looks like he's won this position in spring. It looks like that's concrete. Is the relationship between quarterback and center different than other offensive linemen? And to kind of describe how you guys are bonding?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a guy that I've honestly, from the days got here, I knew he was going to be a big time player for Boise State football. He was another one when I got my interior offensive line pick. That's the first guy I was going for, and that my team knew that because our relationship, I can feel 100% confident going under center, knowing the ball's going to be exactly where it needs to, or in the gun. Like there's sometimes I get caught with my eyes up, but the ball's right where I need it to, and that's a huge deal, and that's a chemistry that we've built throughout the spring. But going forward, it's going to be a huge deal. And honestly, he's done a really good job of even throughout the winter when we'd go out with the wide receivers and throw. He was always there just to snap, and that hasn't happened in the past. His work ethic goes unnoticed to me, and he's gained a lot of respect from my end, knowing that he cares a lot about this football team and a lot about our relationship. I know he's came over to the house a few times, and it's just fun. He's a fun person to be around, but when it comes to football, he's all business, and our relationship's a huge deal.
Just with the eight captains that you guys have grown to, and Spencer saying, you were one of the initial members of this smaller group. From a player's perspective, what's it like when that group grows? And then do you take time to talk with those guys and say like, well, this is what is expected of you now, or is that already pre-earned, or like, I don't know, what's that like, Max? What do you think of the eight?
Yeah, I think that leadership group is in my opinion, it's the best that I've been around. And I know Coach D's on the same page, but it's super picky. Like he kind of left out the fact like it's voted on by the team, but not everyone that the team votes is in because some guys might not like the way they're doing things outside of actual football. And it's super picky. And I feel like that group understands. And to your point of like, do we talk to them? I think everyone now knows like and understands, hey, if you're in a leadership group, it's business. Like you can't live one life in football and second, like outside of football, it is business. And to his point, modeling the way, like that our team sees what we do. We have to set the standard in all aspects of our lives so that they can kind of understand the culture, and it's built from the leadership. And I feel like that group's done a really good job. Thank you, guys.